And CompatibleOne that we will have the pleasure to present today for the second release of CompatibleOne, is something very, would say, interesting for us because it brings us directly into very innovative software and a good way to approach cloud computing with open source. Of course, all we're talking about is open source. So here's the agenda for today. We'll spend something like 1 hour and a half introducing what we've done in CompatibleOne with different partners. Of course, we'll have demos. I mean, it's very important that this workshop has to be, I would say, both presentation but also show things. Then we have the pleasure to have with us Michal with Red Hat. Michal will introduce Delta Cloud and Aurelius. We'll spend a good hour with him, and because we think that there are some studies the same domain, and maybe we have different approaches and maybe some convergence points. That's what we have to find out today. Then we'll have another point of view, I mean, from the customer's point of view with EuroCIO. So Cyril Barthelot, who's Vice President of EuroCIO and also Lagardère employee, will expose what the CIOs in Europe are expecting from clouds and why are they reluctant to go there or not. And finally, we'll have another project, another collaborative project that has been launched recently called Nuage. And we'll have Marc Triboulet and Pascal Gallard with us to introduce what they're doing. So let's start. First of all, to introduce CompatibleOne, something that we have to keep in mind, it's all about interoperability. How do we get interoperability with a heterogeneous cloud service provider, and how do we? If we wanted to introduce very shortly what CompatibleOne is aiming to, first I will introduce why we are doing things, and then people from the group will introduce how they are doing these things. So the first goal we had was to be able to support in a cloud computing environment interoperability, portability, and reversibility. All that thanks to open source and open standards. When we started the project, OpenStack was just arrived, and OpenNebula was already there for a while. And we decided that instead of being in competition with those projects, to be more collaborative and to see how we can bring benefits of what we're doing. So we started to think in terms of how can we modelize the resource necessary for cloud computing. How can we have a common model to describe every resources on and doing that, the result we found is that we had a kind of blueprint for people to define both their needs and requirements, and also the resource that can be, let's say, provisioned. So this is kind of a DevOps approach where you share the same document, same approach between developers of application, I mean users, consumers of cloud services, and providers of cloud services. Finally, doing all that and having put in place an automated provisioning platform and modelizing that, we definitively, I mean, actually we read the literature and we found out that we were doing what Gartner or NIST are calling an open source cloud broker. I mean, CompatibleOne is really there to provide service intermediation for the consumer, between the consumer and the provider, to enable aggregation of cloud services coming from multiple sources, and finally also to be able to do some arbitrage between the choice that the consumer might have in terms of cloud services. So it's fully compliant with NIST reference architecture, that everybody knows now, and we are going deeper in that way, and we'll show how. Of course, all that relies a lot on the partners and the ecosystem we are. So all the partners are present here. We have both big companies, startups, small and big SMEs, and also academic labs such as INRIA and Institut Telecom who are key to this. This project is co-funded by the companies and the French Ministry of Industry, plus Paris region, Paris Town, etc. Now let's go back a while about interoperability, and this may sound a bit facetious or a bit silly, but when I discussed, it came up when I discussed with the W3C people. Basically, when I met the new CEO and asking what does W3C brings to cloud computing, the answer was very simple from them. It was, we standardize HTTP. And looking at that, I thought the answer was quite short, but looking deeper in what the cloud computing here is today, we might think that HTTP could be the minimal standard. And that means that we have a very, very low standard to do some cloud computing today. And if we look at the state of the art, basically, when you speak in terms of interoperability with cloud services, nowadays we can do it. I mean, there are standards, there are libraries, there are things like that that enable that. But it has to be constructed. It's not out of the box yet. Now, when you speak about portability, about the fact that you can take a workload, put it wherever you are, it's very difficult today, because it mainly depends about which kind of services you want to address and what kind of APIs are at which level you may talk. Third point, very important, there's still lots of work to be done in terms of SLA and in terms of security. SLA is something that we are looking at very closely, because I think very important for the market to grow. Here we have an issue to have common definition of SLA. So in fact, what do we have today? We have de facto standards, because I think people such as Amazon have no interest about joining some standard bodies to do some standardization. They are the de facto standards, so they don't care about anything else. It might change due to work such as ours, and also due to the consumer's pressure, who's asking more and more interoperability, portability, and reversibility. We must admit that today there are no real mature standards, I mean, not massively adopted by the industry, even if there are good standards such as, and we'll get back to OSCI in a minute, to CDMI and things like that. But for the moment, it's not very well developed. I mean, the ecosystem around this standard is not set yet. So in fact, what we discovered doing a step-by-step journey into what we're doing is that the interoperability will be provided by cloud service providers who will construct the right interface and the right libraries, protocol, or whatever that will enable this interoperability to be feasible and portability to be feasible, while open standard will make sure. And this is confirmed by most of the literature you can find on the subject today. So the main risk about the lack of interoperability is that today while people are speaking about cloud computing as let's say utility model, we see interoperability in silos. I mean, you find cloud service providers working with a specific ecosystems, linking people with specific APIs, with patents, with commercial contracts, but not interconnecting with other, I mean, not interconnecting easily with other service providers. So when people speak about the utility model, in fact, we are not there yet in the cloud computing environment, because imagine a telephone system that would not be able to roam, or operators to interconnect, or to exchange traffic. And we find the same issue today with electricity and things like that, where we see lots of work being done in utility, being done on these exchange principles. So today we are not there, and we think that with projects such as CompatibleOne, but I think IOLUS has the same kind of will, we can break this vendor lock-in, because basically that's all it means. I mean, once you have a cloud service provider such as, let's say, Salesforce or whatever, that will exchange with specific partners and things like that, they totally lock their customers within an ecosystem. It's very easy to get in because it can be very attractive, but very difficult to get out. So basically, this is what we had in mind when we work on that. So today we're working on this concept of open cloud. Open cloud, for us, definition is very simple. Open cloud equal open standards plus open source. And we are working both with standard bodies, some standard normalization organizations such as OGF, and I'll get back to that, and also with open source projects. I'd like just to refresh where we are with standard bodies. We decided a while ago to use OSCI as a key standard for architecture, and we will show what we've done with OSCI or CCI. And we went to meet these people, I mean the OGF or OSCI working group, and to show what we were producing. Jamie and I in a Cloud Plug Fest, and honestly, the feedback we received was very enthusiastic. And we think that we're going to carry on this way with OGF because contrary to DMTF or other big things like that, OGF is open. The work we're doing will be taken into account by OSCI people. And we have a chance that the work we're doing will be standardized within OGF and the OSCI community. That's one point. Second point is about SNIA, which is quite friendly with OGF. SNIA proposed a very, very smart interface for data management called CDMI. And once again, we have the same feeling. We are as comfortable with SNIA people than we are with OGF people in terms of openness and ability to maintain and govern a good standard. And we'll work in the coming months. We'll start to work on CDMI on that. And finally, we had very recent contact with IETF. There are some people in IETF defining a standard for cloud service brokering. And the standards that the protocol they publish is quite familiar to us because we use exactly the same concepts as we do to interface different cloud service providers. They use the same taxonomy as we do. And we think that here we also can be in a position to work on a standard. So what am I saying here? It's we are at a good time, in the right place, doing the right things, and moving forward. Now it's time to show what CompatibleOne is in technical details, and to see what we're producing in this V2. So I leave the floor to Jamie Marshall. Then Fabio will introduce what he has done with his application. Then we'll have Julien showing EasyVM and the way we manipulate VMs to make it interoperable. And finally, we'll have Florent discussing, exposing what we are doing with a PaaS.